What happens when two seasoned business leaders get together? They talk shop, of course. Sit back and listen in as Scott DeLong and Vince Moiso share from their experience around current issues facing executives, entrepreneurs, and their leadership teams. The CEO Podcast starts now.
Hey everybody, Scott DeLong with the CEO Podcast. I'm here with my partner Vince Moiso, and we've been having a great time this season 3, but I want to talk about some negative aspects as well, right?
Okay.
So there's a concept that's being talked about in a lot of places right now. It's called quiet quitting.
Yeah.
So the concept is generally that people are doing as little as they possibly can in order to not get fired.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it a lot easier with the whole remote workforce and managers not wanting to micromanage and trying to play that gap. But I want to talk deeply about that today. But I also want to talk a little bit about the concept of quiet firing, which is kind of the way that I used to treat girlfriends. I kind of ignore them until they left, right? Because I didn't want to break up with somebody.
Sure.
And what I'm seeing now is that more organizations, you're hearing more about this. You're not hearing the term quiet firing, but that's exactly what they're doing.
In other words, you're referring to somebody that ends up leaving on their own. So they're kind of forced out in a way, but mostly because it's done quietly by, really not developing that person or not attending to their needs or ignoring them altogether.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a fault of management, right?
Yeah.
We have to be honorable enough to let people know where they are and how they're doing and not just avoid them so that they quit.
Yeah.
There's other ways to get people to quit, right?
Yeah.
We actually talked about that today in the class that I'm working with your group.
Yeah.
And we use the performance improvement plan concept.
Yeah.
Which so our theory behind this is that first train, and you train if somebody doesn't know how to do something.
Yeah.
Coaching is the biggest portion of this job as a leader and as a manager.
Yeah.
Coaching somebody up, and that is helping them use the tools that have been given to them, the training and the rest of the tools, in order to do a better job for themselves. And if those things don't work, then we have to manage them.
Well, sure. There's a lot of stuff for us to talk about today. I mean, when you talk about the concept of quiet quitting, in fact, I read an article on that very topic this morning, and you got to pay attention. I mean, one of the things we've had many podcasts before already. I think 3 total around the remote workforce,
and
right?
Engagement
and the level of engagement. We've had guests on.
Yep.
We've had 2 different guests that have told us about they've experienced shared around their successes and what they've actually put into practice around either a hybrid model or a full-blown remote model, right? And what I heard consecutively from those guests is this level of engagement has to be incredibly high. And we've talked about this before. If you have people that are remote, and frankly, even if they're not remote, they're in the office, you have to get them connected to your business. And I think when employees are fully connected, they're not going to follow this path.
Well, and it's our responsibility to get them connected. It's not up to them to be connected. It is ours to get them connected. Or below us, the manager's job to get the front line employees connected. And there's I don't know, I've talked about Tom Peters a few times in the past.
Yeah.
1980s guru from McKinsey. He's the most brilliant leader that I saw at the time.
Right.
Not everyone was working that way. And he called a subject MBWA, management by walking around.
Yeah.
As opposed to micromanaging.
It's a great concept.
Right? Just being present, being out there, walking by, seeing how people are doing, not checking up on. Yes, you're checking up on them, but not checking up on them.
Yeah.
But finding out what their needs are and how are they doing, what can you do to assist them.
Yeah.
That's what management by walking around is. And it's possible with the remote workforce as well.
We have a partner in the business who's so good at that. He does just a great job of keeping tabs on people and just engaging with them on a personal level. And I would call him that MBWA.
MBWA,
yeah. Hey, by the way, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, it is an incredible day in San Clemente.
You should live in San Clemente.
I know. So I mean,
where people should live.
It's just incredible. The sun's out. It's not too hot. We're overlooking the beach right now, and Scott is dressed appropriately for it.
Yeah.
Me, not so much. I'm a little buttoned up today, more than normal. Job interview, nailed it.
Oh boy.
No, kidding. But yeah, just enjoying this weather right now is pretty nice. It's not muggy. Like I felt like we changed coasts.
It's been wonderful.
You know,
yeah.
like a week ago, a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I'll
we're
enjoy the moment.
The backyard right now. It's a nice place to be. So back to the management by walking around. Let's talk about that with the remote workforce. You can't walk over to somebody's desk if they're not there.
No,
However,
but you can call them.
Yeah.
You know, and you can video chat. I think what we've done is we've really embraced the use of Teams. So that's the Microsoft platform.
Yep.
And we message on Teams, and then our internal groups. So I have an inside sales team that breaks out. I have our outside sales team that breaks out. We have our ops team that interacts. We've got our project management team that interacts. And there's a lot of messaging that goes back and forth on the Teams platform, aside from the video chat meetings that we do. And then we also use WhatsApp. So we like WhatsApp, and we create these groups within WhatsApp that keeps that entire group engaged. And it's funny, the call outs are great. So I'll see the call outs of somebody being quiet for a little bit, and I'll say, hey, what's going on? We haven't heard from you.
Yeah.
You know, so the teams are holding each other accountable that way. So I think when you've got multiple ways and channels that are easy for people to engage and connect with the business, it makes it a lot harder to hide.
Sure, but don't get caught up in just one, not the easiest way, right? Which sending that instant message or an email or whatever is an easy way to communicate, or at least that's what you believe you're doing, is communicating through that.
Well, no, in fact,
it's good. However, it's not great.
Well, you can schedule, emails can be really tricky too, because you can schedule emails to go out at different times and things like that. So I think moving away from email, you and I were talking about this yesterday, and I think as an organization, one thing that we can work on is we use email too much, right? Mm-hmm. And we're not using it for what it should be used for, which is informational purposes, memorializing conversations, these type of things. And we are, I'd say, 75% of the time. So we've got some improvement there, and then copying way too many people when it would be better if you just picked up the phone, right? Yeah. But again, it's the comment around that you made. Hey, it's better to just pick up the phone. And you said that to me yesterday. I'm in complete agreement, and that's what keeps people engaged. So
especially if you got a one-on-one situation. Now, one-to-many, that's different. I get that, right? Yeah. You can do video, but just a phone call is personal. So think about this. Today, the way that people say happy birthday to each other, at least older people, we do it on Facebook, right? You get 150 happy birthdays on Facebook on your birthday, and it's nice. Don't get me wrong. It's nice. But when you get that card in the mail, different than what other people are doing, or the phone call from the person, right? It's so much more impact.
My older brother is a stickler on that. He calls bullshit. He says, text and Facebook are fine as long as I get a phone call.
You need to back it up.
Right? You got to, you got to go across all three. He says, but if all I get is a text message or a Facebook post from you, he goes, that's bullshit. That's total bullshit.
So I remember a story back when I was in college. I was up in Utah, and my birthday came around, and I got a card in the mail from my dad. Yeah. But I didn't get a phone call from my dad on that day. I was mad.
Yeah.
Because the expectations stuff. So listen, communicating with people to keep them engaged, great. I don't know that you can over communicate. Can you annoy people? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But checking in and how you check in matters, right?
Yeah.
I'm not checking up on you. I am checking in with you.
Yeah.
There is a difference between those two things.
Absolute difference.
We talked about that today in our course when they and all of these young managers were talking about. I remember when I was micromanaged, I hated it. I hated working for that place. Manager was always checking up on me. Great. So listen to the difference between these two things. How are you doing on that project? As opposed to
I'm doing pretty good, Scott. I think I'm moving along, Scott.
Anything I can do to help you?
Oh, I appreciate the support, but
which one is better?
I think I'm good.
Prefer?
That one. Anything I can do to help
checking
you.
up. with folks instead of checking in on folks instead of checking up on them.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just subtle changes in the language or subtle differences in the communication medium.
Mm-hmm.
On an email, it might sound like you're checking up on them. On a phone call, you can check in.
Well, yeah, email, you've heard me say this before, the written word is then interpreted by who? The reader.
That's right.
So anytime you send an email out for things like that, you're leaving it wide open for the reader to totally interpret what it is you're wanting to say, and it may not be what you intended to say.
And you have no idea how they're interpreting it when you're sending an email or a text.
Absolutely.
You do know on the phone or you do know on a video. You can see how they're interpreting. No. You have a chance to course correct. The same word can be interpreted differently by a lot of people.
Yeah.
One of our previous guests, a friend of mine, Troy Hoffman, uses this analogy. If we're talking about a dog, you know exactly what I mean, don't you? It's a dog. A dog is a pretty easy description. Now describe your dog. Could be you have short little dogs, right?
Yeah,
little curly haired dogs.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a big German Shepherd or a Labrador.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we can interpret the word dog. If I say dog to you, you're thinking of this short, cuddly little thing, and I'm thinking of this vicious thing that's going to protect my home.
Yeah.
Right? See how language can be interpreted differently by the person hearing it. Now, on an email, I can't tell how they're interpreting. In a text, I can't tell how they're interpreting. But when I pick up the phone or if I see them on video or if I walk to their office, it's real easy to tell because body language will tell me, the tone of voice will tell me, the inflection in their voice will tell me.
Well, Scott, I like what you said because you use the words course correct. And I think when you're on a video chat or you're face-to-face or you're on a phone call, you can course correct immediately on something. So if somebody misinterpreted something that you said, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let me articulate that a little bit better. I don't think I did that right or said that right." And you can course correct at that moment. And then in addition to that, you can say things like, "What I heard you say is this," and repeat back to them what you heard from them to make sure that you're in alignment. And then in addition, you can ask, "Can you repeat back to me what you heard so I know we're on the same page with the action items?"
So let's talk about that for a minute because I had one of the young managers today say, "Well, isn't that a little awkward to say, what did you hear?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, well, here's the options. You can either be, first of all, you can solve that in the one-on-ones by saying, hey, listen, here's how we're going to engage.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something. I'm going to ask you what you interpreted to make sure we're on the same page because here's what's going to happen. I can either check with you now to see if you understand or wait till you deliver the wrong deliverable because you didn't fully understand what my intentions were, what I was trying to say. You heard what you heard and you believed you understood me completely and you believe you're delivering exactly what you want. And if it's not what I want, what happens then? You're in trouble.
Right.
Right? So why not set up that scenario up front with your employees, and this is where the one-on-one again comes in play, is to talk to people about, hey, the way I communicate is, I first just took this job, the way I communicate is this. And I know there's different interpretations, so I'm going to ask you. And I'm hoping at some point you're going to tell me what you've heard rather than me have to ask you. And that's just the way I'd like to get this communication so that we can meet each other's expectations.
Yeah, those that work with me, Scott, and you know this about me, they all know I communicate in that way. And I'm very clear that I communicate in that way. And so it's expected. Yeah. When we're in a meeting, it's totally expected. And, you know, nobody, I think initially... Again, I love that question came up in your meeting today. It's a great question, valid question. Yep. And at the same time, I understand where it's coming from because it's a self-perception. There's a perception that's going on there. There's a fear inhibitor of, oh shoot, I don't really want to look bad. Isn't that going to be awkward? And I love it.
We can displace those awkward moments by having more dialogue around how we do things around here, what the culture is going to be like, and all that. And then it's not awkward. It's just part of the way we communicate.
Well, shoot, my CrossFit coach Edgar. You've met Edgar before, and I love it. Edgar says it the best. It's only awkward if you make it awkward.
Yeah.
And he says that all the time, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, really, we often create our own awkwardness around that, and it isn't. I'm very comfortable with it. That's the language that I use on a regular basis. My team knows to expect it, and we're much more productive for it. And I want to go back, Scott, though, because the topic we're talking about, just to repeat it, is we're talking about this quiet quitting that's going on, and what we're relating that to is the level of engagement and connection that you can have from your team, and ways to get them engaged and connected. And a lot of it just breaks down into how you communicate, when you communicate, and how often you communicate.
So it's not just quantity of communication, but the quality of communication as well.
Absolutely.
Making sure that people have a good understanding, and that their understanding's in alignment with yours. And then we have far fewer problems down the line, and we don't have people that are going to end up quiet quitting. Now, there's not culture fits, and people don't like their jobs, they're going to quit. You're not going to stop turnover. Turnover is going to happen. No matter how good you think you hire, we're not going to hire perfectly all the time, right? So we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is that people feeling lonely, and helping them avoid that lonely feeling from work from home.
Disconnected.
Yes, they raise their hands. They want to work remotely, and we could sit there and say, well, this is what you asked for. Here's what you get. Or we can adjust the way that we engage with people so they don't get that feeling.
Yeah, find ways to connect and keep them connected, because that's it. They're feeling disconnected. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about this for a second. So let's shift gears and put the onus on leadership. Now, I would argue
that's not shifting gears.
Well,
it is on us.
It is on us.
Yes.
Well, what I'm saying is what I'm saying is this, essentially. I think if you're experiencing quiet quitting, that's on you.
It's not their fault.
I think as a leader, you don't have your finger on the pulse, and you really don't know what's going on with your employees if that's happening. And it's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, a business owner, and we were talking about the business that they're running at this moment, and she mentions to me that she's having turnover issues.
Yeah.
And I think that's a root problem that has to be solved, and probably one of the most immediate things that if I were to coach that business, I'm not coaching that business, but if I were, that would be the thing I would completely focus on, because it's really difficult to run a successful business and run a successful team if you've got this constant turnover. And you gotta point the finger inward at some time and say, why is this happening? And usually it is a result of having disengaged, disconnected employees that aren't bought into whatever your mission
managers
or values or purpose, brand purpose of whatever it is that you're going after. And it just, the buck stops here with leadership.
Well, and not only that, so we also need to learn to do a better job of managing that process down, and getting our directors, vice presidents, directors, managers to have that same internal feeling that the buck stops here with them as well. And the people that are in their charge, they need to feel connected, because people will leave poor managers more than poor leaders. That doesn't abdicate our responsibility to do a better job of leading, but we need to teach the leadership skills and the processes to the directors, managers as well, so that we don't lose our frontline workers.
Yeah.
To me, it's real simple, and it's complicated, right? It's not easy. Everyone's busy, right? No one has enough employees right now. You can't find enough employees, so everyone's scratching and clawing and busy. But I don't believe that there's anything more important than for a manager to do than to make sure that they take care of their people.
Yeah.
And I said this today in the class as well. The better job you do of being a leader, the more leadership principles you employ, the less management you're going to have to do. The less you're going to have to hold people accountable, because they're going to want to live up to the role that you've provided for them.
No question. No question.
Yeah. Listen, it again, everything's on me. That's the way I look at the world, right? It's on me to perform. It's on me to change the things that I need to change, to be aware of things that I'm not aware of. It's on me to be able to listen to people who are telling me the things that I'm not aware of. We all have blind spots. Don't fool yourself. We all have blind spots. And if we're not welcoming people helping us see those blind spots, we're making a mistake.
Well, it's much more difficult today, right, Scott? So as we talk about this world that we're living in right now, and I think it's ever changing. It's pretty dynamic, but we've got at least this hybrid remote model that's just here to stay, at least for now.
It's not changing.
And I do see a shift. Actually, I am seeing a shift in a lot of businesses in the market, and I think a lot of people are saying, I'm tired of being home and I want to get back to work. So I think there's a large percentage that are doing that. And then there's also this contingency of people that have said, I love being remote and I only want to be remote moving forward. Right. And so even you see talent out in the marketplace that's just saying, I'm going to demand, if I'm looking at a job, my number one question is going to be, can I work remote? And so as a leader in the business, we have to adapt to that. We have to adapt in engaging and connecting our team in different ways. And I think it was easier before because everybody was at the office and you could have you could create a culture where you're having your parties, you're having your giveaways, you're having all these things, right? You're walking around the office, you're doing all these things. Well, that doesn't necessarily exist anymore. Certainly not in the way that it used to.
But how can you replicate it?
So how can you replicate the model,
the
feel of it in this new world that we're living in? So
if you want to avoid this whole concept of quiet quitting, take responsibility for it. First of all, it's on you, not on them. It's easy to blame, millennials this, or the Gen Z's this, or the Xers are doing this. It's really easy to say that. But the fact of the matter is, it's on me to make the changes that I need to make to get people to want to be at that place, to want to be doing that work.
Scott, I say start with your culture. I think that would be the first place to start, and you have to adapt your culture. You have to evolve your culture now because it has to accommodate this hybrid remote workforce that you might have, or a completely remote workforce, as we've seen with other businesses that we've talked to. And so you have to change your culture. Your culture can't exist and be the same as it was.
It won't be the same.
It won't be the same. So you have to adapt. You have to evolve your culture. Start there. That's the number one place to start. Secondarily, use the tools, as we were talking about earlier, use the tools and the platforms that you have. I mentioned that I'm using Microsoft Teams at a high level. I'm using WhatsApp as two platforms that I can utilize to communicate more often at a higher quality with all my team members than I ever did before. And then they're using that amongst each other. And as I mentioned, it's created this organic accountability with each other. So it becomes very difficult for someone to hide. I think if you can create a scenario where someone can't hide, you increase your chances of avoiding quiet quitting happening.
So I'm going to suggest that people are going to say, well, that's extroverts versus introverts, and I'm saying, no, it's not. It's people. You're dealing with people. Introverts want to be talked to as well. They want to be not talked with, not talked to. I said that wrong. They want to be communicated
Collaboration.
with, not talked to. Just as much as the extroverts do.
Now,
the extroverts may take the stage and talk more, but everybody wants to be heard. Everyone wants to feel like they're a part of something.
Well, and how about this last thing? Just pay attention. I mean, you just got to be paying attention to your business, and honestly, you don't have your finger on the pulse. If you've got a revolving door, if you got people quiet quitting, you're just not paying attention.
I think that's true. All right, so we're getting towards the end of it. How about a couple nuggets? What are you going to come up with? One or two things that people should start doing today, if they're not already, should start doing today in order to eliminate this concept of quiet quitting. It should not be in our vernacular. We should not have to be talking about something like quiet quitting.
Well, I like what you said earlier, and so I'm gonna repeat it. So I'm gonna steal it from you right now, and I'm gonna say you got to just check in with everybody. I said, if you want to do something tomorrow, and if you're concerned, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, shoot, I don't know if I've got any quiet quitters right now, just check in. I think the best thing you can do is just schedule some one-on-ones, check in with your team, and check in, not check on. That's what Scott talked about earlier. Checking in and checking on somebody are two very, very different things.
So now you really stole what I was going to talk about.
No,
because I was going to play off your checking in and making sure that we doing that, noticing the difference between checking in on somebody, checking in with somebody, and checking up on somebody.
Yeah,
There's
brother.
a difference, and they feel it.
Thunder, gone. Stole it. You're done.
Perfect.
I took it.
I got nothing new.
Yeah. So that's it. I think that's what I got, man. Checking in with your people, and do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even if you don't think you have any quiet quitters, if you think you got your finger on the pulse, check in anyway. You know, if you're not doing one-on-ones, and you're not checking in on your people.
Turnover across the country is 20-25%. You've got some quiet quitters, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah, check in on them, no doubt. All right, this is a good one.
All right. Well, until next time, I want everyone to pay attention to our social platforms, because that's where we're letting you see that we're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're doing YouTube. We're getting a bigger hit on YouTube these days, maybe because of the background. I don't know.
they're liking our
sitting out here in the sunshine
background.
once in a while. Maybe in the winter when we're indoors, it's not going to be as good. But the
either
YouTube
way,
channel's growing. So
yeah,
check
please
us out
subscribe.
at the CEO Podcast. You can find us at theceopodcast.net. You can get a hold of us at scottandvince@gmail.com. We love hearing comments. In fact, we do a lot of our podcast based on the comments that are coming in from the listeners, and that's the topic for the next time.
Absolutely. Till next time, man.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the CEO Podcast. Please visit us at theceopodcast.net, where you can learn more about our co-hosts and listen to past episodes. If you would like to have a discussion and dive deeper into any topic, there is also an option to contact Scott or Vince to schedule some time with them. Thanks for listening.